Looks like it's happening. Mr. Tent, P.O. Box 3626, Newtown, Connecticut 06470 is my address. And who is my? This guy right here, baby, Malcolm Tent. Yeah, it's me, Malcolm Tent, bringing you the latest episode of Tent Talks Tunes. Trying to figure out workarounds for my cheap ass video camera here. Anybody who's seen Tent Talks Tunes more than a couple of times knows that it's been a continual struggle between me and my cheap ass internet camera. Just earlier today I was working on some workarounds for it. The only way to make it stay in focus all the time is to disable the autofocus function on it, which is the whole reason I bought it. I bought it for the autofocus so I could show you stuff close up and far away. But as you see, it only works sometimes. Sometimes it works close up. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it works far away. Sometimes it doesn't. I don't know. I might have to go back to my super cheap $29 camera because it didn't do anything. It also didn't make weird clicking noises whenever the autofocus came in and out. Like, look at this. Look how blurry I am. Maybe I need to get a new phone. It'll correct itself eventually. So yeah, that's my mailing address. P.O. Box 3626, Newtown, Connecticut. And I did indeed get this mysterious postcard from somebody named La Dama Dorada, which very loosely translates into Golden Girl. I think I know who you are, but your secret is safe with me. Ms. Golden, you will always be sterling as far as I'm concerned. Yes, thank you for the postcard. Another great package arrived at P.O. Box 3626, Newtown, Connecticut, from my good pal Josh at Gruesome Gifts. Josh and I have very similar aesthetics. Maybe his video camera is as bad as mine. Let's see if we can make this thing get into focus. There we go. Looks like yes, I can see myself and you can see me too. Great. Yeah, Josh at Gruesome Gifts. Not only does he sell a lot of my label stuff, TPOS, on eBay, but he shares a very similar aesthetic to mine. And I love getting packages in the mail from him almost as much as I love sending stuff back to him. Josh, if you're watching, I've got a box being filled right now so that I can reciprocate the wonderful stuff that you just sent me. Look at this. A Devo t-shirt. He definitely knows me. I'll be sporting this all summer long, baby, and probably in the winter too. A Devo t-shirt. A very strange 8-track. Very strange 8-track by a guy named Peter Foldy. You can see that. Peter Foldy, he's from Canada. His song titles are really interesting. Yes, Operator, I'll Never Know, Why Am I Alone, When I Am So in Love, Optimistic Dream. Kind of a sort of naivete about this guy's song titles. And it's an 8-track from Canada. You gotta love that. I love my 8-tracks. In case you all didn't know that, I release a lot of stuff on 8-track. And here's something I'm working on, Josh. This is not a spoiler. This is all going out to Josh soon. And about this, very carefully, painfully, painstakingly made 8-tracks. This is He's Able by the People's Temple Choir on 8-track. Because Josh commissioned them. This is indeed the Reverend Jim Jones and his wife Marceline and all of the innocent people that they led to their doom doing a gospel album. And it is on 8-track now. Thanks to me. And thanks to Josh for inspiring me on that. I do have plans to repress this on vinyl sooner than later. But for now, you got the 8-track. Got it on cassette too. This is the kind of stuff I do, you know, that's why I love 8-tracks so much. And I have talked about 8-tracks here on Tent Talks Tunes. If you go to my YouTube channel, you just might find it. Hello, Mr. Knapp. Hello, Dorian James. Hello, Eric. Hello, Ray. Hello, Pear. And hello, Allison, my good pal Allison. One of the very few professional astrologers I know. Mazel tov, Allison. Josh also sent me some very strange and enigmatic artwork. I don't know what's going on here, but it is art. It is in a frame, and it's got a little standee on the back. Therefore, it is art. So I've got some framed art to send to you, Josh. Hello, Chad, my blog buddy. Hello, Chad. Chad's got real good taste in country music. Hello, Eric. Hello, everybody. It's really good to have you all on board here for Tent Talks Tunes. It's nice to know that my words of alleged wisdom are being received in your delicate shell-like ears. All right, so if your ears are too delicate and too shell-like, you might want to tune out now. Because to paraphrase the great Alice Cooper, you are the only censor. If you don't like what I have to say, you can turn me off. And the only reason I mention that is because today's episode of Tent Talks Tunes is devoted to the always controversial, but always collectible GG Allin. Oh my God, you say the name GG Allin, you get an instant response one way or another. It's either love or hate. If it's who, once the person looks up GG Allin, it's either love or hate. Personally, I love the guy. I love his music. I knew him. I am never one to go out and say that we were best buddies, that we hung out or shared deep dark secrets together or anything like that. But I did know him. We did work together. We had a very friendly working relationship. And the way I've always looked at it is that his antics never would have meant a thing if his music didn't seriously kick some butt. His music is great. And I've also come to some very interesting realizations lately. I've been hanging out with some people and also looking at a lot of the posts on the GG Allin fan page here on Facebook. And one thing I've noticed that's kind of consistent, there are a lot of people in this world who have been through some really serious, horrific shit in their lives. People who have experienced things that I would never want to experience and that I am grateful to have not experienced. And a lot of these people, some of whom I know personally, love Gigi because they look at him and they see him as someone who survived. Because he went through some stuff you wouldn't believe. He went through. You can look up his biography and everything. Even with all of his, he was prone to exaggerate certain things and distort certain things. But even without all that, his story was pretty heavy and pretty bad. And so I know a lot of people who can relate to him on that level as people who came through a lot of horrible shit. And they look at him as someone who not only came through it, but he came through it unbroken and defiant, and who lived his life exactly the way he wanted to. And that's pretty cool. That's a really good way of looking at it. It's a very positive way of looking at it. So I salute all of you survivors out there who, like Gigi, empathize with him, sympathize with him, and use him as an inspiration to continue living your lives unbroken as survivors and as people who can carry on in spite of all the stuff that was thrown at you when you didn't want or need it thrown at you. So that's the kind of context I like to frame GG Allin in, besides the kick-ass rock and roll. So a toast to all the survivors out there. I don't know what you guys are drinking, but I'm drinking some of that good Danbury tap water. A gallon a day keeps the AMA quack far away. So, how did this magnificent obsession begin? How did I find myself so deep in the wormhole of GG Allin? Well, I'll tell you. It was early 1987. Early 1987. I'm sure a few of you people out there who are watching Tent Talks Tunes were not even born in early 1987. That's fine, man. Young or old, you're here now. That's good. Early 1987, I was behind the counter at my brick and mortar record store, Trash American style, The virtual version of which you can find on Discogs and eBay, just saying. And this kid walked in, and he said, "Hey, you got anything by GG Allin?" And my answer was, "Yes, I do. I do have this cassette from GG Allin." And he bought it, and he came back and said, "I want more." And I said, "I can do that," because back in them days, the greatest social networking tool in the world for punk rockers and hardcores was Maximum Rock and Roll. It's kind of the same deal. You either like them or you loathe them. You can either hang with their extreme left-wing politics or you can't. Or maybe you don't care one way or another. Maybe you just look at it as an awesome, comprehensive document of the punk rock scene as it's happening worldwide, like worldwide. So GG would always advertise in Maximum Rock and Roll. So it was a very simple matter to pick up the latest issue of Maximum Rock and Roll, leaf through it. Oh, there's his ad. Write to GG Allin, P.O. Box 54, Hooksett, New Hampshire, whatever the zip code was. "Hey, GG, I'd like some of your stuff." We started dealing. And at the time that I started dealing with GG Allin, he was between record labels. He had no one to release his stuff except himself. So what I started ordering from GG Allin and receiving in vast quantities was cassettes. I get boxes of cassettes from GG. I don't want to hold this too close to the camera because I don't want to screw up the focus, but these are all original handmade cassettes that I got from GG, mostly between the years 1987 and 1989. And these are all his own handmade versions of his albums, which at the time were not available on vinyl. We've got the classic "Eat My Fuck," the tasteful GG Allin and the Texas Nazis live. Oh boy. "Screaming Animal and Public Enemy," GG Allin live in Peoria. Okay. Very much into self-documentation. Live at Gino's in Portland, Maine. And these things were all like very lo-fi, all with really crude photocopied covers. "You'll Never Tame Me," it's my personal favorite. This album's amazing. Whoops, I'm just going to destroy it right now. GG would have wanted it that way. And I'm going to drop my glasses. It's the spirit of GG coming up from the bowels of hell, letting us know that he's watching, making total chaos happen. Hey. And I don't know which one this is, but yeah, he would send me all these tapes. And I, at the time, was kind of nonplussed because he charged me a comparatively a lot of money. Your average hardcore or punk rock demo that I was buying from bands, I was paying like $2 each for. GG was charging me, I think, $3.50, $4 a cassette. So that was a lot, you know. And especially when you looked at the cassettes themselves, they were, you know, recorded on just whatever cheap blank he had laying around. Sometimes he would record on his answering machine tapes. He would record on the 3 for $1 blank cassettes that you would get at your local drugstore. Like this is one of those. 3 for $1 at Gray Drugs, you know, or Zayre's department store, that kind of thing. 3 for $1, but he didn't care. He was charging $3.50, $4 each for these things. And the inserts were all crude, and you know, if they had anything written on them at all, he was handwritten. So I was like, I don't know about this. But whatever, I got a bunch, and sure enough, people bought them. I sold a lot of these things, lots of them. And that's just kind of where it sprung from. We had a very friendly working relationship. So I always thought GG, because he advertised in Maximum Rock and Roll, was like, I thought he was a hardcore guy. I thought he played like, you know, for lack of better terminology, like straight ahead generic hardcore. That's what I thought. Or I thought maybe he was like some kind of a like some kind of downtown New York performance artist. You know, because all the pictures in his ads, he was heavily posed and, you know, like posing hard, and you could tell he had dressed up for the photo shoot, and he was really just like throwing shapes. So I was like, all right, he's a performance artist, or he's a hardcore dude, whatever. People are buying a lot of his records. I wonder what the guy sounds like. So I took this very copy of GG Allin and the Scumfucks, You'll Never Tame Me, dropped it in the cassette player at the store, pressed the play button, and was blown away by how good it was. It was just rock and roll. It was just like very tasty, very well done rock and roll with, yes, some of the most patently offensive, gratuitously offensive lyrics you will ever hear. But man, he sang those songs with so much passion and so much integrity and so much conviction, just pure conviction. You know, a song like ass fucking, butt sucking, cunt licking, masturbation. It's kind of hard to say a song title like that with a straight face. But the way he sang it, you know, he believed it. This guy, he was for real. This was not a joke. This was not a put on. This guy meant it. And so that made me a fan. I went from being a retailer to a fan. And so I started collecting GG Allin records. And I should mention, after I take another swig of this great Danbury tap water, there's a certain bouquet of chlorine that they put into Danbury tap water, which luckily I have a filter to filter out, but it still is what it is. The whole reason I was even inspired to talk about GG today is because another great big package I got in the mail from my good friends over at Blood Orange Records, who have been, they're doing what I'm doing, the comprehensive reissue of the GG Allin catalog, and their stuff is great. So I did a big old trade with them. I sent them a bunch of my stuff, and they sent me a bunch of their stuff, which includes, you know, reissues of the very first couple of 7-inchers, for the first time ever, the great song Occupation on 7-inch, you know, reissue of his first album. Here's their reissue of You'll Never Tame Me. So I got all these GG reissues in the mail from Blood Orange Records, and that's what set me off on the mad tangent to talk about GG and my collecting thereof. So also a big salute to Blood Orange, man. Those guys are doing a great job. Great job. So the kid who initially wanted all these GG Allin records bought a whole bunch, and after a while just kind of stopped being interested in GG, so he traded all of his stuff back in. And remember, this was at a time when GG was between record labels. Nobody was releasing his stuff except him, and his records were pretty hard to find. At the time, they weren't like necessarily valuable. Nobody like really wanted them that much, but they were just kind of hard to find. So I was delighted when this kid traded all the stuff back in that I had sold him, plus one record that I had never seen before, and that I could not believe this was the same guy. But this is the very copy of the original GG Allin Always Is, Was, and Always Shall Be album that young fellow traded back into me in 1987. I looked at this cover and I was like, that's him? That's the same guy? Couldn't believe it. This young and pretty thing ended up being the beaten, battered, scarred, knocked to pieces, drunk, junked out, borderline insane, I mean, I could go on, right? Borderline insane, smelly scumfuck that I was dealing with? Impossible. But yeah, it's him. It's his first album. And it was on the Orange Records label, which I will show you here. Orange Records label. That was the record label run by David Peel from New York City. And David Peel is an entire story unto himself. And the story of how GG and David Peel hooked up is also an entire story unto itself, which I'm not going to go into. But GG in his early days, and it could be argued his entire life, he really wanted to be a rock star. He really wanted mainstream success. You know, he wanted to be big. He wanted to be in all the magazines. And he worked it. He worked it relentlessly. He sent promo copies of his records and his tapes to anybody who he thought would give it a review or play it on the radio or do an interview or anything. He never, ever stopped. And that's how he was able to hook up with David Peel. And all you Trash American style aficionados people who came to the store, I never really noticed this before, but on the inner sleeve, that's Kathy's handwriting. That's Kathy, my former business partner, transcribing all of the lyrics to Abuse Myself, I Wanna Die. And it goes on forever. And this is bringing back memories. Like when we first heard GG stuff, we were just so completely amazed that anybody could sing lyrics like that with that sort of intensity and that conviction. And I remember her like sitting there with that cassette and transcribing the lyrics because it's like we just couldn't believe that these lyrics were actually being sung by somebody. And she wanted to write them all down. So there they are. Not only a GG Allin artifact, but a Trash American style artifact as well. Now, Eric Peterson says he wants to hear about pissing on Cosloy. I'm going to get to that in a minute. Believe it or not, there is a story about GG Allin pissing on Cosloy, and I've got the documentation to prove it. So stay tuned. Don't go away. So yes, this first GG Allin record I ever got, his first album, and nowadays, of course, it is phenomenally rare. I got a couple of copies. See, in the record business, things are always coming your way, you know. And for me, my job is to sell. I can't afford to keep every record I would like to. It's just not possible. You know, you got to sell something. You got to make money. You just have to. But I do manage to hang on to things occasionally, and I've got a pretty good collection. So this one, here's another copy. There's a second copy of GG Allin's first record on Orange Records. This one came about so randomly, it's hard to believe. But when I had the store, I got to know a lot of people who were house wreckers and clean out people. You know, like a house would be, you know, ready to go on the market or is going to be demolished or something. So these people would go and, you know, for a fee, clean the place out. They'd take all the junk out of it. They'd haul it off to the dump or whatever. And I told all these guys, look, I want records. If you find records in any of these places, bring them to me. I want to look at them. Can't guarantee I'll buy them, but I want to see any records you guys find in these old houses. And so one day this dude rolled up with his pickup truck full of records. Just full of them. From stem to stern, from port to starboard. Just that bed was full of records. He probably had 1,000, 1,500 records in this flatbed truck. And it was a hot, sunny day, man, in the middle of summer, and my parking lot didn't have shade, but I was like, well, I asked for it, so I might as well get it. So I started going through these records in this guy's pickup truck. And they were terrible. Oh my God, they were terrible. They were just like, you know, every bad, lousy album you've ever found in an abandoned house, you know. You know, how many copies of Whipped Cream and Other Delights do you think exist on the planet? You know, this guy had several dozen, I'm sure. So I'm going through all these records, and they're all terrible. And I see the Internet Research team is on the ball. Nick Stone has just posted a very helpful hint, a helpful link to my friends at Blood Orange Records. Thank you, Nick. And Larry Mann, yes, David Peel, have a marijuana. The very same David Peel. So anyway, I'm in the blazing hot sun. It's humid. I hadn't had lunch yet. I feel like I'm dying. These records are terrible. I feel really bad because this guy went through a lot of trouble to load all these records, and none of them are any good, and I don't want to buy any of them. But I'm like halfway through, and I pull this one record out. The one record I was able to buy from this guy. One. And it was a copy of GG Allin's first album. Not only autographed, but autographed twice. Why this record was in the middle of all that thrift store junk, I will never guess. I will never know. And he didn't know. He just bought it. You know, he found it like an old house. They were going to throw the stuff in the dumpster. It's probably a record that he sent to somebody in hopes that they might play it on the radio or write about it. And the person was like, oh, yeah, whatever. In with the Montavani records. In with Grandma's old Glenn Miller records. Don't want it. Where it remained until the fateful day that guy pulled up into my parking lot with a truck full of garbage. And then I gave him whatever I gave him for it. Never saw him again. Can't blame him, really. He went through a lot of work for $5 or $6. But, you know, that's also at the time, you know, I reiterate, the stuff was maybe hard to find, but it really wasn't like rare or valuable. It was just, oh, GG signed a record. No, look at that. He signed it twice. Ha 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 ha. I'll stick this one in my collection too. Whatever. So we're off and running now, baby. We are collecting like mad these GG Allin records. So as I would go out in the field, especially here in the Northeast, Connecticut, Massachusetts, Vermont, New Hampshire, certain parts of upstate New York, GG stuff was fairly plentiful. And that's how I ended up with, God, I think at one time, I think I had 4 or 5 of these. I think I can show this one. I don't know. I think I can get away with showing this one, at least briefly. 4 or 5 of the hand-drawn original cover of, I'm just going to flash this, guys, Eat My Fuck by GG Allin and the Scumfucks. GG, toward the end of his record releasing career, was so down and out and so broke that when it came time to release his second full length, The Aforementioned Eat My Fuck, he didn't have money for covers. He could afford to press the records, which he released on his own label, appropriately enough, Blood Records. He was able to press the records, but he was not flush enough, that's a deliberate pun, by the way, flush enough to print covers. So he took all these blank white covers and hand drew every single one of them. He wrote the song titles, he drew the art. Every one of these he drew by hand, and he didn't slack off on any of them. Every one of them has got the full front cover art. The ones that have hard covers I've seen all have the titles very carefully written out. The only one I've seen that didn't have the titles on it was this one with the paper sleeve. It's like he'd even run out of hard covers and was down to paper sleeves. And he still wouldn't stop. He decorated this by hand in full and sent it out. There is a priceless photo that I just saw for the first time recently of GG at a Ramones record signing at some record store somewhere. And the Ramones are all seated at the table, you know, doing the assembly line autograph thing. And GG is very anxiously handing a copy of this album to the Ramones. Looks like Dee Dee was going to be the lucky recipient. You can only imagine what Johnny would have said or done if GG'd handed him this album. I shudder to think. History will never know what happened to that copy of Eat My Fuck. It's probably straight in the dumpster after that. Boy, the dumpster dive in 1984 after that record signing. Ay, 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 ay. As you can see, once again, GG in his tireless fashion, this is a copy to Ron, and it's a promo. And also I found a copy. I kept the sleeve because it has, in his handwriting, his address in Manchester, New Hampshire, where he lived at the time. So that was just like the endless self-promotion, man. Just non-stop self-promotion. And Scott Monroe says that the copy that I had was probably sold to you by his ex-GF Carey. Could be. Could very well be, because Carey, now for those of you who don't know, Scott Monroe used to have a zine here in Connecticut called Chairs Missing. And Chairs Missing ran the first, and I would say maybe one of the very, very, very few very intelligent interviews with GG. And it's great. Scott, if you're watching right now live, and you can post the link, because I believe you said that you had archived all of your issues of Chairs Missing online. If you could post that link so that people can, A, see your zine in general, and B, see that interview specifically, it's worth checking out. If you're a GG fan, it's a great interview. GG actually drops the persona. I don't know why. He trusted her for some reason, but the persona is mostly dropped for this interview, and you actually get a glimpse at the real human being, GG Allin. It's very interesting. So Scott, even if you're not able to, I suggest anybody out there on the internet research team, look up Chairs Missing Fanzine by Scott Monroe, and you'll find yourselves an excellent GG Allin interview from a very critical time in his life. You'll notice I carefully sleeved that one and gently dropped it on the floor. Gently dropped it on the floor. I think it's worth mentioning, too, that from all those cassettes I got from GG, he did his own, as I showed you a second ago, cassette version of Eat My Fuck. And it, too, very painstakingly has the hand-drawn art. Oh, and this is one of the promo cassettes he got. This is a ROIR promo cassette. I don't know exactly who it was, but after he signed to ROIR, I guess they gave him a bunch of promos. So if you look carefully, you see he took a sharp object and scraped off all of the information that was on it, and then hand wrote the information. That's dedication, man. You can see where the ink soaked through the back. It's not a photocopy. That's a genuine drawn cover. Wow. Now, I mentioned earlier Orange Records and the fact that it was David Peel's label. And David Peel was one prolific mofo. I couldn't even tell you how many records that guy put out. But if you're looking for the very, very obscure and very, very arcane GG collectibles, there are 2 David Peel albums that I know of. There might even be more. But these 2 for sure, Death to Disco and 1984, GG, along with Al Chappelle and Rob Basso from the Jabbers, allegedly they're on this record. The musician credit on this album, which is that's everybody who played on this album. There's like 4,000 people on this album, and they're usually all playing at once, maybe in varying combinations. But we got credit. GG Allin on electric rhythm guitar, Alan Chappelle on electric rhythm guitar with phase shifter effects. It's very carefully pointed out. And also Rob Basso, who, with my cheap glasses, I can't find his credit. He's on here somewhere. Probably lead guitar, because that was what Rob Basso did. Rob Basso, if you're out there, can you tell us anything about the making of this record and where the Jabbers actually are on it? I'd love to know. Very, very, very curious to know. So that's pretty obscure. I have no idea where the Jabbers are. Like I said, there's like 4,000 people playing at once, and they could be in there anywhere. So who knows? But they're on there. They got the credit. They're on the cover. Go figure. And then Scott Monroe says if the interview is not online, he will put it up somehow. Thank you, Scott. I appreciate it. I'm pretty sure I saw the interview on a site. It might have been madmanofmanchester.com. Somebody can figure it out. The internet research team, there's your assignment. There's your homework. Find that Chairs Missing interview and let us know where it is, because it is great. Now here's another one, the 1984 album. This one's got an interesting credit. It's produced by David Peel, GG Allin, and Al Chappelle. But according to the liner notes, which get a little bit detailed, David Peel was famous for excessively detailed liner notes. GG and Alan Chappelle were assistant recording producers in the Mixdown series at Dark Star Studios, somewhere, New Boston, New Hampshire. There you go. I really got to get another set of dollar store glasses. And Eric Peterson found it. Yes, on the old Swedish Scum super site run by Jimmy Bankston. Yes, check it out, guys. It's a great interview. And the remains of Jimmy's website, crucial early data source for GG stuff. And Jimmy's still out there and still at it. So Jimmy, the original Swedish Scum, Hello. This is great. We're networking like mad here. See, the power of GG Allin brings people together. He's a unifying force. He makes people happy. Don't know if you'd ever want to admit that, but it's true. It's happening now. This is the positive aspect of the man and his music. This next one, oh, this is funny. This one's real funny. Okay, a little bit of backstory on this one. I showed you guys how my former business partner, Kathy, took the time and the trouble to transcribe all of the lyrics to Abuse Myself, I Want to Die on the inside of that record cover because she just loved the song so much. She thought it was so funny and so intense simultaneously that she had to write all the lyrics down. So Kathy, at some point, gathered together all of the GG materials that we had. All the cassettes, and whatever records we had laying around, and she went through and created her own GG Allin Greatest Hits mixtape. And not only that, she interspersed the songs with some of the funniest bits from the GG Allin live in Dallas, Texas. Because some of Gigi's raps on that album are hilarious, like really funny. So she stitched the whole thing together and made a 60-minute cassette that she called A Taste of GG Allin. And my label, TPOS, thought I was going to let you guys forget, right? You thought I was going to let you forget. You can't forget while you're watching Tent Talks Tunes. My label, TPOS, like I've always been very proactive about releasing stuff. And Gigi's whole thing, the whole time I knew him, was, at least the way he professed it, was he didn't care if you released something. Just send him copies, send him money, don't rip him off, do it justice. So I took Kathy's tape called A Taste of GG Allin, and I made some copies of it. Gave it a catalog number, TPOS number 21, put together some artwork, and I actually have some of the original sleeves for the cassette that I never used. A Taste of GG Allin, TPOS number 21. Try as I might, I can't remember how many I made. It was less than 10, I know that. It was definitely less than 10. I sold 2 or 3 at the store. And I sent Gigi a few. Said, hey, look at this. Look what we made. And I immediately heard back from him. He said, you can't do that. You can't make those. I just signed a contract with Homestead. I don't want to get sued. And I was like, okay. Sulk. Mope. Take all these inserts that we printed. We actually printed these in brown photocopy toner, which back in the days of 1987... that was a pretty rare thing to do, you know. Brown toner, you had to buy toner for your photocopier one color at a time, and it was expensive. So we had this one toner cartridge that was brown, and I ran off all the cassette inserts I possibly could on brown. So this was like a big deal at the time. It was brown, not black and white. And Gigi says we can't do it. All right, we can't do it. So, all right. Our great compilation, Kathy's great work with the greatest hits and the funny bits from GG Allin live in Dallas. No one will ever know. Well, imagine my surprise. Imagine my shock and my awe when sometime after that it was related to me that ROIR, 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 the cassette label, had just released a GG Allin cassette. It's like, oh, cool, I need that. So I ordered some, and I got the cassette. I don't have the cassette here. I have the rare vinyl version. But all of you fans out there, you'll know what this is. Hated in the Nation. GG Allin, Hated in the Nation on ROIR. And I crack it open, and I look at it, and I'm like, oh, wow, it's kind of like a greatest hits. Interesting. Pop it in. Starts off with an introduction by Michael Board, and then it goes through this career retrospective with all these bits from GG Allin live in Dallas. interspersed between the songs. Okay. And you look at the inner J card, and they use, oh, that's what a coincidence. They use the very picture I used. Huh, that's weird. Well, gee whiz. And you know, being somewhat young and naive, or maybe just being a bit of a Pollyanna, who was born in Littleton, New Hampshire, I should mention, I never thought anything of it. Never thought anything. I was like, wow, what a strange coincidence. Huh, this ROIR cassette is almost identical to the one that we came up with. Huh, that's weird. It wasn't until way later that I thought, yeah, god damn, that is just a little bit too coincidental, I think. Just a little bit too. Especially as I learned more and more later and later about how GG would liberally borrow from many different sources and not give credit. That, my friends, is a documented fact. He liberally borrowed from many different sources and never gave credit. What are you going to do? It's the price of doing business with GG Allin. So it goes. So anyway, the GG Allin Hated in the Nation cassette is not rare at all. It's never been out of print. It's been reissued on vinyl a few times, but this is the original vinyl issue from sometime in the early 90s. I don't know if they put a date on this thing. There's a short-lived label called Danceteria. They were European, and they licensed a bunch of ROIR's titles, and they all had this kind of generic cover with the hurricane radar image, and then the art from the cassette plopped in the eye of the hurricane, and a generic song title listing on the back. So this is the first ever vinyl pressing of Hated in the Nation from Europe. It was on white vinyl. My copy is still sealed, because that's just the kind of guy I am. And yeah, I'm gonna boldly state right now, Kathy Kelly came up with the track listing, and I released it first. There, I said it. Michael Board, if you're out there, because Michael Board from the great band Artless and Sideboard World Enterprises, Michael Board had a lot to do with the assembly of this. Michael Board, if you're out there, I want to know what you have to say about this, because you're an honorable man, and I know you'll tell it like it is. Michael Board, I want to hear your side of the story. Please phone home. You'll notice that one common theme in Tent Talks Tunes is that the record business is a shark pool, a cesspool, and a jungle filled with piranhas swinging from vines. Piranhas swinging from vines! And I willingly jumped into it. Woo! Drink a toast to me for having the sheer stupidity and or guts to do it. Here's one for all you collectors out there. You suffer from the same disease that I do? You like to collect? Well, collect this. How about a GG Allin test pressing, baby? Woo! GG Allin test pressing. This is for the Immortal album Freaks, Faggots, Drunks, and Junkies, which came out when GG was quite possibly at the lowest ebb of his entire life, circa 1989-1990. This is a test pressing. I did an entire Tent Talks Tunes on test pressings. So go back and look at that episode and you'll learn all about test pressings. In a nutshell, just to put it very briefly, a test pressing is a version of the record that is made prior to release. And it's given to the record label, the band, the producers to test it. You listen to this if you're concerned about the quality of it. You listen to it, it's okay, give it the thumbs up, and then the record company makes the final version. And test pressings typically have generic labels, depending on the manufacturer, with just the most bare bone information. Hardly ever is there like a real cover to them, and it's the kind of thing, if you don't know what it is, you can just very easily gloss over it or pay no attention to it. But they're made in very small quantities. That's why test pressings are so much fun to collect and so desirable. the pressing plant that I use whenever I release my stuff on TPOS. The maximum they'll press is 50, and you have to specially request that. The standard is 3. Like if you just press a record and get the basic generic package, you get 3 of these. If you ask nicely and pay an extra, like a lot of extra money, you can get up to 50, but that's it. They're not going to press any more than 50 because they actually have to set up a separate press for it, and it's just, you know, it's probably not ethical to press too many of them, you know, because they're not really test pressings then. But I'm a collector. I always press as many as I possibly can because I love the things. So anyway, these are rare because there are very few of them compared to the, you know, who knows how many thousands of these have actually been made and sold over the years. So the test pressings, very small quantities. And for a very short period of time, very brief period of time, these test pressings that came from Hub Serval Manufacturing, just generally speaking, were kind of common because they were based, if I remember correctly, they were based in New Jersey. And they would take whatever test pressings they had just kind of laying around and dump them, sell them cheap, you know. I heard reports of them being sold at the flea market by some guy who worked there and just like fished them out of the garbage or whatever and took them to the flea market and sold them for $1 each. And you never knew what you were getting. You had to actually listen to it to say, okay, this one's GG Allin, this one's The Living Strings, this one is Disco Hits 75. It's like you never knew what you were going to get. So a few of those did indeed make it into the wilderness, and I got one, a GG Allin test pressing, testing one of the crudest, sludgiest, lo-fi, most difficult to listen to records ever, testing the quality for it. Who said life isn't full of irony, baby? Irony, irony, irony. Well, this irony makes me thirsty. Getting kind of hungry too, but luckily I've only got oh boy, I actually got a lot to talk about. I'm going to talk about one more, two more if you count these. This is in reference to pissing on Cosloy. Gerard Cosloy was the president of Homestead Records, and you heard me mention earlier that GG had signed a contract with Homestead. And Homestead was the original label that released You Give Love a Bad Name, Freaks, Faggots, Drunks, and Junkies, and the cassette version of the Suicide Sessions. Cosloy was also in GG's band, The Holy Men, who backed GG up on the You Give Love a Bad Name album and played a couple of gigs with him, including the infamous Cat Club show. The reference to pissing on Cosloy, oddly enough, is documented on this release on TPOS, baby. That's right, I released it on vinyl, well, actually on PVC plastic. This is an album called Songs About Getting Paid and Getting Laid. That's the front. Excuse me, that's the back. And this is from one of the two, as far as I know, the two known shows that Gerard Cosloy played with GG Allin. It's from the Lismar Lounge in 1987. And this is the show where GG relieves himself on Cosloy's leg. You can't see it. You can't even hear it. But there's a lot of commotion and people are saying, ah. In fact, it's Chicken John himself. Chicken John, who I've known since he was a teenager, and who later became GG's guitar player. It's Chicken John who gleefully says, GG just pissed on Cosloy's leg. Ha 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 ha. And it's on this record. I made 28 of these. There are only 28 of them in existence. As of this speaking right now, I've sold 23 of them. Look at that. Completely transparent. I see you. I can't see you actually, but you can see me. Hand cut by a real life human being in Tennessee. It's low fidelity. It's monophonic. It's sludgy. Just the way it should be. So if you're a super duper hardcore collector and you want one of these, of which only 28 was made, talk to me. I only got 5 left. Hit me up. Here's its companion piece. This is a little bit called Shock Art, Drunks, and Strippers. And if you guys are familiar with GG's Homestead albums, you know exactly who I'm paying tribute to. That's the front. That's the back. This is from the Shock Art Festival in Montreal, Canada, 1988. Significant because it's the only gig that I know of that GG ever played with a female musician in the band. That's right, he had a female bass player on this one. Gina Schlonk. She did a pretty damn good job. 28 of these are made. I'm down to my last 5 or so. If you want one, talk to me. Because if I do make these again, they're not going to be numbered. That much I know, and they're probably going to have a different cover art because of the usual snafu with making covers. So if you want the actual first pressing version, numbered of 28, you got to let me know, man. Soon. Like real soon. Like yesterday. The last GG record I'm going to talk about is the very strange saga of GG Allin and the Murder Junkies. Yes, indeed you do. And this is a rare one. This came out in 1992, I believe, and this is the original OG GG Allin and the Murder Junkies full-length album. It was released only in France on the New Rose label. And it's pretty cool because before GG had the set band of the Murder Junkies, which was his brother Merle Allin on bass, and the one and only Dino Sex on drums, he had a couple of different lineups. The first lineup was none other than, you can see him right there, the boys from Brutalsville themselves, the almighty Anti-Scene. That's right, Anti-Scene were the original Murder Junkies. And this album was recorded in Charlotte, North Carolina, and was produced by Jeff Clayton, the fearless leader of Anti-Scene. So the Anti-Scene were the original Murder Junkies. And this is the very hard to find now original pressing that has all of these spoken word bits between the songs. Every single reissue of this album that's come out since this has been lacking the spoken word bits. And I asked Jeff Clayton, Jeff, why is that? And for those of you who don't know why I have a direct line to Jeff Clayton's ears, because I'm the bass player for Anti-Scene. You probably knew that, but I'm here to tell you, to remind you, I'm the bass player for Anti-Scene, and as far as I'm concerned, I'm the last bass player Anti-Scene will ever have. They're going to have to carry me out. No intentions of quitting here, baby. I'm already looking forward to the 50th anniversary show. We got the 40th coming up in a couple of years. I'll be there for that. Unless, indeed, they've had to carry me out somewhere. And I want to be there for the 50th, too. Okay, now we got some action here. We got Luke, we got Warren, we got Jordan, and we got Greg, who all want copies of those hand-lathed records. You guys, message me personally. I've only got 5 or 6 left. There's 4 of you right there. So it's first comes, first served, okay? Luke, Warren, Jordan, and Greg. You guys could be getting 4 of the last 5. All right? Now, Warren, technically you're second, okay? Luke is first, Warren second, Jordan third, Greg fourth. There's still room for all of yous, but you gotta hit me up now. You know me. Look me up. Anyway, it's so easy to get sidetracked when we're live. All you people looking at this on YouTube, you don't know what the hell's going on. But when we're live, it's a lot of fun. It really is. So subscribe to my YouTube channel. Look me up on Facebook Live. It's so cool. It's so cool. So yeah, Anti-Scene with the original Murder Junkies. The spoken word bits were taken off, and I asked Clayton, why, Clayton, why no spoken word bits? He said because he didn't like the way that the spoken word parts broke up the flow of the music. And so he exercised executor, or I should say producer's privilege, executive privilege as producer, to not put the spoken word bits on the album. Fair enough. So this has the songs and the spoken word bits, and here's a little secret for you guys. A little secret. Also coming up on TPOS is an album that we're going to call the Carolina Chronicles, which is going to have all of those spoken word bits with Jeff Clayton approved backing tracks created by people who worked with GG, like legit, played music with him, knew him personally, and I think are therefore qualified, and we agree, qualified to make noises on those spoken word bits. I've been putting that together now for almost a year. They sound fantastic. They sound really good. So I'm very happy with it. And it's not in the production schedule yet, but it's going to happen. You heard it here first. The Carolina Chronicles featuring all the spoken word bits from the Murder Junkies album with very tasteful and respectfully recorded backing by people who knew him. Put that in your pipe and smoke it. So Anti-Scene were the original Murder Junkies. There was also a 7-inch single called GG Allin and the Murder Junkies, if you can see it. So this is actually GG Allin and Mark Sheehan, the late Mark Sheehan. And I'm pretty sure it's GG on drums and probably Mark Sheehan on bass. I think. See, it gets really arcane sometimes. You don't really know all the time. But it's definitely GG and Mark Sheehan who are the original scumfucks. For whatever reason, I guess in keeping with the concept of Murder Junkies, when GG got out of jail in 1991, he and Mark Sheehan recorded this 7-inch as the Murder Junkies. Not as the Scumfucks, but as the Murder Junkies. And it's pretty raw. It is raw and brutal. It's raw, brutal, rough, and bloody. And it's been reissued. This is the original 7-inch on the Stomach Ache label out of Massachusetts. And it came out on, look at that, some delightful red vinyl. From what I understand, they made 1,000 of them, and that was it. This has never been reissued on 7-inch, as far as I know. Not even bootlegged. So that's it. 2 GG Allin and the Murder Junkies records before there actually were Murder Junkies, as we know them. So that's pretty cool. And the Murder Junkies, by the way, are still very much alive and well. They are touring at the end of the summer. Rumor has it there might be some action with Anti-Scene and the Murder Junkies sharing the stage together. Might happen. I haven't gotten the official 100% confirmation on that. Might happen. It's worth mentioning, too, that P.P. Duvet, the lead singer of the Murder Junkies, and I have a brand new group. We're called the Bloody Apostles. And we rock. Our drummer is Paul Ledney from Profanatica, America's first black metal band. So this is a super group, kids. Anti-Scene, Murder Junkies, They Hate Us, and Profanatica. Keep an eye open for further developments on our front. Because we do rock. We do rock. And in answer to the earlier query about what does TPOS stand for, you guys, Gary, and let's see who else. Gary, and there's a few other people, Gary and Greg and Nick and a couple others. You guys are coming up with what you think TPOS stands for. That's what I want to see. I want to see what you think it stands for. The power of sound, that's good. 10 pounds of salt, that's great. My favorite one was those potatoes ought to suck. I thought that was good. The Devo fanboy in me really liked that one a lot, so that was cool. So yeah, guys, thanks a lot, man. I really appreciate everybody tuning in and checking out Tent Talks Tunes and listening to my long-winded stories about GG Allin and record collecting and the bands I'm in and my record label and all that. I really do appreciate it. I'm always glad to have you guys on board every Wednesday live on the dreaded Facebook at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So please tune in, subscribe to my YouTube channel, talk to me on Facebook. Let's talk. Let's talk about records and music and fun stuff like that. And I do hope to see you all somewhere at a live gig sooner than later. As far as the internet goes, I do hope to be back in about 167 hours' time. Until we meet again, this is indeed Malcolm Tent saying so long from the Nutmeg State.